So your child hits you during a meltdown. And the world is going to tell you, on the one side, they're going to tell you, hey, you need to punish that immediately because you don't want to teach them or train them that it's okay to hit you. On the other side, they're going to say, no, well, you have to understand that they have something going on. You have to stay calm and connected. But the truth is, that's easy for somebody to tell you when they're not the one getting hit. And so I want to offer you something kind of in between. How are we able to set the limit that hitting is not okay, but also being able to be connected and show love to our child at the same time? I'm Megan Ham. I'm a licensed professional counselor, registered play therapist, and we're going to get into what do you do during a meltdown when hitting is behavior that you see. So we already talked about the two different ways that we can look at it, right? One way is punishment, stop the behavior immediately. And the other part is like just that being able to be connected and stand there with your child. But I want us to talk about being able to, how do we hold it together? What's going on before we get to that point so that we can support them in that point. And so that is the purpose of me creating the HEART framework. So the HEART framework is a de-escalation tool that I teach parents, I teach caregivers, I teach teachers and staff, helping professionals of how do we manage the behavior when we're in the middle of the crisis. So as we talk about this thing, there are going to be three things that we have to keep in mind automatically. One, the first thing is that behavior is communication. Whenever you see a child having a challenging behavior, a tantrum, a meltdown, all the things, their behavior is communicating something. There's an unmet need there. And then our job is to be able to try to help them figure it out so we can offer support. The second thing that there's always going to be the undertone of things that we talk about is we can't control anybody else's responses. Right, but that's not nothing new to us. We understand that. But sometimes when we're in a position of authority as a parent, as a caregiver, as a helping professional, we think that our job is to control the behavior. It's not. Our job is to control our response to the behavior, and our response will be able to help them. As I tell people all the time, we can't control our children's behavior. What we can do is influence it by our behavior. And the third thing is that when a child is dealing with a behavior crisis, I look at it as a crisis, which means that they need something. And our job is to be able to identify what is that compassionate approach that we can do to be able to provide them with the thing that they need. It'll be the basis of every conversation that we have, those three things. So I am Megan Ham, and I have been working in this field for over 18 years. But, I had somebody to rewrite my bio one time. I was doing a speaking engagement, and they made a comment. They say almost 2 decades. And that sounded so much regal to me. So for almost 2 decades, I've been working with children and families who've been in behavior crisis, from DHS custody, from juvenile justice, and all the things. And so I have worked a lot with parents and families who were just saying, hey, I don't know what to do. We've tried everything. We've tried all of these resources. We've tried all of these interventions. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I first got into this field, I was behavior modification through and through, which meant that my goal, or what I thought my goal was to be able to help the parent stop the behavior. So if the child had aggression, then the goal was to decrease the aggression by any means necessary, which means we use behavior charts. We use sticker charts. We use timeouts. We use taking away the tablets. We use all of these things that were supposed to be able to stop the behavior. But what happened was I then became trauma trained. And so as a helping professional, I became trauma trained and realized that, there's something going on underneath that. And a sticker chart cannot, getting a sticker cannot take away a trauma response, right? And so I learned something different. But baby, it wasn't until I had my own personal experience when I became a foster to adoptive mom, and I was trauma trained, licensed professional counselor, registered play therapist, all the things, but I was dealing with the trauma day in and day out. And I found myself in a meltdown cycle that became part of how I changed the way that I did the work and how I do the work today. So if we're being 100% honest, the reason I'm here having this conversation with you today is not just because of the clinical practice that I've had, but also the personal experience. And what it made me realize is that I didn't need any more fluff. I needed, what do I do when the rubber hits the road? When I am dealing with a child who is in a constant meltdown cycle, who are in the middle of their behavior crisis, and they need de-escalation. And so that's the lens from which I work. And so that's the lens in which we're going to have this conversation today. So let's go back to being hit during a meltdown. I mean, of all the things that your kid can do when they are melting down or they are dealing with a tantrum or dealing with challenging behaviors, it's hard to feel like we are allowing a child to hit us. Because the thing is, especially if you were raised like I was raised, oh, that's intentional. And we take it personally because, oh, you can control that. If you wanted to be able to control that, you would have. And so a lot of times we will start responding from that. So the first thing I want us to be able to talk about is being able to look underneath the behavior. We use this by like what we call a behavior iceberg. And so the behavior iceberg in the mental health field is really talking about, if you think about what an iceberg looks like, the behavior on the top is the thing that we see, but underneath there's so many other things going on. So when you think about a behavior like hitting, the hitting is on top, but what's underneath? Underneath may be feeling frustrated. It may be feeling loss of control, feeling unsafe. Those are things that are underneath that are really driving the behavior. It may be unmet needs. It may be sensory overload, fear, frustration, without having the words to say that. And so our goal is to be able to play detective and look for that unmet need, being able to assess for triggers so that we can decode the behavior that's in front of us. Because if we're unable to decode the behavior and actually find out what is going on underneath the behavior, all of the interventions that we use may be great interventions, but they may not work for what that child needs in the moment, right? So then the second thing that we have to do, or that I teach parents to do, is you have to understand your responses and understand how you're feeling before you start to talk. Baby, I can only imagine what it feels like to be in the middle of trying to help somebody calm down and they hauled off and hit you. Right? But being able to realize that you have to let them borrow your calm. You have to let them borrow your sense of compassion. Right? And thinking about what is that reflex for you and why is that your reflex? Because if somebody hit me, the reflex is to hit them back. Let's just be honest, right? So I try to stay far away so I don't get hit, because, baby, once I get hit, we don't, if we're being honest, we don't always know how we were going to respond. And so in a perfect situation, we can say, oh, yeah, I can do this and I can do that. But if you ain't never been hit in the nose, or you ain't never been hit in the face, or you ain't never been kicked in the shin, it's hard to say what you're going to do. And so being able for us to identify how am I feeling, what is going on within me, and even taking a break if you need to. Ain't nothing wrong with taking a break, right? So being able to do that, because absolutely you're not going to be able to help somebody else regulate if you are dysregulated, right? Imagine having to call emergency services for something that's a crisis, and when they show up, they're just as agitated and upset and frustrated and discombobulated as you are. Baby, you're not even going to think that they can help you. So thinking about that, that's where we be able to do that. Part of the center that I use as a registered play therapist in the playroom. And so I validate the feeling and stop the behavior at the same time. And so I can say, hey, it seems like you're really upset with mama right now, but mama is not for hitting, right? We can find something else that you can do. I won't let you hit me, right? Another thing that you could do is, block the hit, get out of their reach, all the things. One of the things that I hear from parents the most is, well, how do I make sure that they are safe? Like, you're telling me to just block the hit or just get out of the way. But what if they're trying to run in the road, or what if they're trying to do all of these things? And all of those things are important factors. And if safety is a concern, then you respond how you need to make sure that you and your child are safe. My goal is to help you be able to identify and notice those things before it gets to the point where they're in the middle of the road. I'll say is, hey, it seems like you're really upset about, whatever the thing is. It seems like you're really upset that you had to turn in the iPad. It seems like you're really upset that you had to turn the TV off. It seems like you're really upset that you had to stop, playing the game. But mama's not for hitting. You can come over here and you can choose to sit here by me until you calm down, or you can choose to do something else. Now, the thing about it is, all those words coming out like that may not seem like they're helping in the moment, but it's all about repetition. Because what you're teaching them is that you're going to set the boundary every time. You're not going to allow them to hit you, and that there is a follow through. But Miss Megan, what about the consequence? How do I let them know that hitting me really ain't the move? And so the thing I would tell a parent is, you can definitely enforce a consequence. You can definitely identify, because you hit me, this is the thing that's going to happen, or this is the thing that's not going to happen. It's not about if the consequence, but it's really about when. The boundary, and also letting them know when they are in the middle of a meltdown, that's not when you should give the consequence, because they don't care. They don't know what's going on. That part of their brain is absolutely not working. So what I would encourage you to do is, once everybody is calm, once the crisis has been diverted for that day, you sit down and you have a conversation with them and say, hey, when you were really upset, you hit mama, and mama's not for hitting. So these are the things that when you get really upset, these are some other options of things that you can do. Right? So you're teaching them, you're giving them the skill, but also okay for you to sit down and say, hey, when you were upset, you hit mama. These are different options that you have, of things that you can do when you get that upset, so that you don't hit mama. But also, it's okay to say, hey, when you were upset, you hit mama. So for the next 20 minutes, you won't be allowed to play on your tablet. That's absolutely okay. And so what that does is saying, hey, in the moment, I realized that my role was de-escalation. My role was to connect with you and to help you be able to see different options. But that doesn't mean that we never going to talk about the fact that you were hitting as an option, right? And so here's what I want you to do next. If you are having a hard time or difficult time identifying what your child's triggers are, I want you to download the free trigger checklist. So what it does, and the link will be in the description. So what it does is walk through your child's behavior, whatever that behavior is. If it's hidden, if it's something else, walking through that behavior, writing down things that come to mind, but also looking at a checklist of options of what are the things that this behavior is trying to communicate to me. Because once we find out what the behavior is communicating, then our goal is to make sure that those needs are being met by our children in terms of our responses, the environment that we put them in, or even maybe the skill that needs to be built. But all of that is okay. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments. I will come back and answer every question that y'all put. And y'all have a great rest of your day.